I love Dr. Stone. I've sung its praises in the past, saying that Senku is cool and that he is a good protagonist. I love many things about the show, but that isn't to say that it has some glaring issues. And because of those issues, I don't think the story as a whole is an insanely good one. Now, do I enjoy it a ton and think it's a fun story? Yes, of course, but do I think it's a perfect one or even one of really good quality? No. So, with the 4th season coming out, which I'm thoroughly enjoying by the way, I wanted to talk about the story as a whole. The good, the bad, and the weird. There will be a few spoilers on the later parts of the video, which I will remind you once again for. So if you come to agree with me, learn something new, or just enjoy a madman's rambling, leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching. So first, let's start off with the good things. The most obvious thing is that the concept is sick. This is one of the most creative and new premises I've seen. It's an isekai, I would argue, but in the same world, meaning everything is pretty grounded. I think they also execute said premise very well. Most things, including the pacing, production, protagonists, and antagonists, are done well. The pacing in the beginning especially really lets the small bits of progress gained through painstaking trial and error shine. It shows the reality of science. It's not magic and it takes an insane amount of work to do. The person doing the science, Senku, is also a good protagonist. He checks my 3 boxes. He has a personality, a calculating, sleazy, witty, but also caring genius with a goal to revive the whole world, which he is willing to make tough decisions for. So the proactivity part is also checked. And though he has genius level intellect, he is physically weak and can't handle a lot of the things the wilderness throws at him, which is the main conflict of the 1st season. It handles a theme of power in the form of the primary question, is strength physical or mental? So he also has a flaw to give him more than one side. Lastly, he fits the show perfectly. What Senku makes the audience feel is exactly what the author seemed to have wanted. He is sleazy and funny at times, he is witty, but he also has his fair share of heartfelt moments. All of this is what makes the show great. The progress is really satisfying and we see exactly what they have to do and how they're going to struggle to achieve a certain goal. And on the way of making something bigger, we also get related products that we can use. It really highlights how cool science and being smart can be through showing us how exactly we progress. We start off with rubbing sticks and stones together and move to building rockets, and we can see the exact path they take. This show does isekai very well. It's not a power fantasy at all because we see how useless Senku is on his own. We see the tedium he goes through, and when they get results, we as the audience are as elated as the characters. But I think we all know this already. Everyone who has seen the show will be able to recognize this satisfying feeling I'm describing. So instead of saying what we already know, I want to talk about something that may not be so obvious: the problems. The first problem that I want to talk about is how on the nose and corny some of the things in the show are. For example, Senku wearing a lab coat everywhere with Einstein's famous equation on it. It feels like the author is really just rubbing it in our faces that he is smart. And it's not just Senku. Ryusui constantly talking about his sailor's instincts, Gen constantly being called a mentalist, which honestly in itself kinda sounds dumb because they also kinda use it wrong. What they want to portray seems to be a magician who is well versed in psychology and the human mind, but they instead use the word mentalist, which after looking it up, I found out that it means a magician who performs feats that apparently demonstrate extraordinary mental powers, such as mind reading, or a madman. So it's a bit silly that they do that. Another person that comes to mind is Tsukasa. There are so many times in the show where they just go, "Oh, he is just so strong. He is the world's strongest primate high schooler," which I'd honestly be insulted by. This show has a problem of really shoving it in your face when they want you to know something about someone. Like, yeah dude, we get it. You don't have to say it like a billion times. One more thing that somewhat irked me was the unrealistic capabilities of everyone there. There's no way anyone can one-punch a fully grown male lion like that. There's no way for someone to precisely count the amount of seconds they have been petrified for, which is 4,000 years. There's no way Chrome should be able to learn that quickly. Chrome is also a smart guy, but after having zero foundation in modern education, to being able to make crazy shit is very unrealistic. I get that these things things all have purposes. Senku is supposed to be the super genius, and Tsukasa wouldn't be such a threat if it weren't for his insane strength, but I wish they would either tone it down a bit or just make it a little less crazy. Like, it could still be crazy, but it just has to be somewhat possible, or at least address it in some way. These things should not just be yada yada. They should properly address many of the things which they don't. And with one of the main points of the story being the realism of it all, the hyperbolic aspects of these characters with zero explanation, making it simply magic, the show loses some points in my book. One of my biggest criticisms for Ayanokoji from Classroom of the Elite is that he is not smart. He has magic, which the show explains by saying he's just smart. Ayanokoji has mind control and future sight, not intellect. And a lot of it also goes for Senku. Even counting for nearly 4,000 years should be impossible. I don't think a human being could go that long doing anything without losing consciousness or simply going insane. Also, it should be impossible to measure exactly 1 second like that. He should be off by a bit. Try pausing the video and count to 10 with a stopwatch right next to you. None of you got exactly 10. You may have gotten 8, 9, 11, or even 10 point something, but none of you got exactly 10.00. Senku apparently did with 0 error through 4,000 years. Things like that are just magical. And calling something magical in a show that is supposed to be about science is not good. One more instance of this occurs when he has to calculate when and how to throw the vial of revival fluid. Let's look a little closer. First of all, the members of the Science Kingdom line up perfectly 5 meters apart, which is stupid. The whole thing where they test the speed of the light by raising their hands is really stupid. So many extraneous factors would go into that. It is going to be really hard to line up perfectly in 5 meters. You're going to have to be perfectly perpendicular to the light source for this to work, assuming that the light exits the device in a spherical manner. There will be human error to when they would raise their hands. If they predict when the light will hit by looking, they might be too early. If they do it reactionarily and only raise their hands after it definitely hits their hands, there will be human error in the form of reaction time. And then he does some calculations based off the wind speed, drag force, gravity, and other stuff. And finally, he has to throw the vial at an exact speed to an exact time. That is the thing that bothers me the most. If it's just the calculations, sure, I'm sure there's some Asian kid out there who could do that, but the throwing? Senku is not an athletic man. He should not have that kind of precision with throwing. You see, they just give him magic. To prevent this, what they should have done is make his limits clear and come up with a different solution that is within those limits. A character should always have limits to what they can and can't do. You can't just pull a Deus Ex Machina out of nowhere. That is the definition of an ass pull. Just give them random solutions that were never before explored to get out of a situation. It's dumb. Don't do it. There is zero conceivable reason for Senku to be able to throw with that precision. Him counting and calculating, it's still really dumb, but they can at least explain it. They explained that he practiced counting with precision for 3,700 years, but it doesn't make sense because he doesn't have a reference during that time to know exactly how long a second is, meaning his whole counting system could need calibration and frankly could be wrong. But they acknowledge it at least. Calculating at lightning speed, if you know how and exactly what to calculate and can do some quick mental maths, those are not outside the realms of possibility. But throwing it, he has no practice. He has no reason he should be able to do that except for the fact that he has magic. And during times like these, this show almost strikes me as a cheap power fantasy. Another thing that makes me think this is the fact that the characters are actually pretty lackluster. I did praise Senku as a protagonist, and while I still stand by that, I also have to realize that he doesn't have a really good arc or depth. The base and him fundamentally is good, but what they do with that strong base is not as strong. He wakes up as the same Senku he will be at the end of the series, and that's a problem. Sure, he progresses in science and works towards his goal, but him as a person remains stagnant. I will say now, this is not a character-driven show. All of the characters have one or at most two faces. The characters are actually more interesting in concept than they actually are. An old dwarven master craftsman, a diligent and earnest man strong at both the body and heart, a badass lioness, a sleazy master of the mind. These characters are way more interesting when you just explain it. This is because when you explain them in such simple terms before watching it, you expect more. You think, oh, those sound pretty cool already, it must be so much more when I actually watch it. But in actuality, they are just what you explained. I really wish that they did a lot more with the characters. Give them some conflict, not due to plot, but because of character. Maybe Senku realizes his naivete in wanting to revive the whole world and acknowledging the gravity of what Tsukasa has to say. Maybe Gen goes through some growth. I think some of the best moments are the ones that show a more human side of these characters. Exposing Senku's vulnerability when he cries over his dad's message was great. It hits hard. We need more of that, because this is an emotional premise. Everyone dies, and the people who are revived will now be without their past lives. Maybe we can have something where not everyone maintained consciousness and died as a result. A parent, sibling, or friend of one of the members of the Science Kingdom are not able to be revived as they have not remained conscious. That would be a crazy emotional scene where we see more of a permanent consequence due to the calamity, but also see more of the characters being human. I don't need it to be a melodrama. That's not what the show is. It should still be fun for the vast majority, but seeing more of a human side to the characters would make everything hit so much deeper. A Place Further Than the Universe, which as I mentioned more and more, I'm realizing is probably my favorite anime of all time, demonstrates this perfectly. The show is not supposed to be a tragedy, it's supposed to be a cute fun show about our cute fun girls, but within the fun also lies some deep, very human emotional moments. Kimari being sad over not having accomplished anything during her youth. That's a very real feeling that even I get. Yusuke wanting to create a genuine bond with someone. That's another real problem. Best girl, Hinata being bullied and saved by her new friends. The portrayal of the bullying, the portrayal of her fake friends apologizing now that she is doing something grand, and her real friends telling them to fuck off. Everyone in their lives needs someone to be able to tell others to fuck off. Hinata's real friend's message was, hey, I get that you are sorry, but you hurt someone, you shouldn't expect to be completely forgiven. So I'm glad that you realize you hurt someone, but you still hurt someone, so thanks, but piss off. That's a very real portrayal of a very important thing. It might honestly be unrealistic to just forgive them completely. No, if you hurt someone, you can be sorry, but you should still pay for it. And Shirase's whole goal and the whole male scene, I won't spoil too much, but all of these were super deep, emotional, and human moments that didn't take away from the fun. If anything, it added to it. It made the fun scenes even more fun. It made the moments where the character succeeded even more felt by the audience. Dr. Stone should do the same thing. Make the characters more human, make them grow. Even the antagonists who quote-unquote grow don't really. Tsukasa doesn't really grow, it's more of a switch. Hyuga doesn't grow, he just flips. Magma doesn't really grow, he just suddenly shifts. This is true for all former antagonists who turn to allies. The only person in the entire show who has some genuine growth would be Ginro. He starts off as a sleazy, despicable, cowardly little shit, but grows and has moments of bravery and honor. But even that was so minor, especially due to him being a relatively minor character. Characters are arguably the most important aspects of any show or piece of media. Even if it's a lighthearted show for fun, having those emotions heightens your goals so much more. Also, again, Dr. Stone doesn't have a lighthearted premise. Everyone was wiped off the earth. They could 100% make it a little darker and more emotional. Because right now, there is a huge disparity between the actual tone of the show and what it would be like if the earth was actually wiped off. However, the thing that is by far the biggest problem with the series is the pacing. The pacing in the beginning was great. We see the painstaking process of everything, every struggle, and we see and understand how long everything is taking. But as we move on, we jump through days, months, and even years in just a flash. Manga spoilers up ahead, so watch out. We start out humbly with things like making ramen being a huge deal, but we quickly move up. In the later chapters, we go from making a smartphone to making a fucking rocket in like 10 chapters. That is way too fast. Now, I know that some of these things have parts in common, but still, that is insane. And then we move to time travel after that, and with how scientific the show is, time travel seems a little bit out of place. Physics itself forbids time travel to the past. Someone like Senku should know that. Anyways, some of these processes of making things supposedly took a long ass time. It apparently took them months to build the Perseus ship, but they just kinda yada over it. Now, I get not making it actually 4 months or however long it took in runtime, but we need more than what they gave. 4 months is a long time, but they just skip over it in a montage. And this is partly why the show feels so stupid later on. They jump from phones to rockets really fast. Things like this may actually be pretty far apart in time, but the series doesn't treat it as such. You know, making a phone, making a rocket, and hell, even a time machine, if I'm completely suspending my disbelief, isn't that crazy. With advanced enough science, they could do that over a long time, but people spend their whole lives trying to even prove time travel can exist. Actually making a time machine would theoretically take even longer, but they just do it too fast. They go, yeah, we have a phone now, hell yeah, now we have a rocket ship. Oh, that's great. And now we're making a time machine. Science. Bitch. This is what makes it so stupid. Show the tedious process. Show just how long it takes. Slow down. Make it a longer series if you need. Put mini side quests in between to show just how long 4 months is. Maybe even show them growing. One example of this is Suika. Suika, being the only one left to survive petrification, physically grows by the time she revives everyone. Even though the process was mostly skipped over, they didn't have a whole separate spin-off or anything, but they showed a visible change. They need to show some permanent change. Maybe, I don't know, they could, I'm just throwing out ideas. Show a pregnant woman or a woman giving birth in a few chapters before making the Perseus, which they could have to, somehow care for with science. They have to assure a safe birth. This could also be a very real problem they have. Births were very, very dangerous before, and after the 4 months, we can finally see the baby birth or see the baby grow a bit. Some sort of timestamp to show us that things changed. Maybe 2 people in the town got married or had kids, or the kids grew up more, or the landscape changed, or someone even died. All of these options would make it way more emotional and human too, as births, deaths, and marriages are very potent in emotion. They wouldn't hurt or change the story, but it would also just show how long these things are taking. And it could somewhat be educational, showing how exactly a C-section or safe childbirth works. Frieren does this great. We see time passing, we see people die, towns change, governments change. To be fair, that show is over hundreds of years, not mere months, but we can have a more subtle and miniature change. Like everything I just mentioned, show us a passing of time. Don't just 4 months later ... it. So yeah, I'll again state that I love this series. I think it's a good, fun series, which is why it hurts me to say that there's so much missed potential. I think it could have been one of the greatest shows of all time. They have one of the coolest concepts I've ever seen, and they do most things well. Senku is great, the science is great, the conflicts are great, but there are just a few points where they are lacking in. Those few points could have made it a near perfect story. So yeah, I don't hate this show. I never said that. I know there are gonna be stupid people in the comments saying shit like that, so I'll just say it here so I can timestamp this to them. I am just able to notice that this show isn't perfect. Anyways, there you have it. My name is NoahBoahCoah. According to my calculations, using the theory of relativity to do very real calculations, Yo Mama is fat. And thank you for watching.